All right, well, good evening, everyone. Today is February 11th. This is the Warrant Committee meeting. We are holding this meeting over Zoom as well as in person, and the meeting is being recorded. Having a quorum present, I think we'll take a roll call. There's nobody online, is there, Frank? We don't have any members online, do we? No.
Oh, yeah, right here.
Let's see. Oh, George, no, there's nobody in there yet. Okay. So, why don't we just go around the room and say your name and present.
Brent Nelson, present.
Ed Vasella, present.
Bob Sonny, present.
Steve Callahan, present.
Ashley Ledoux, present. William Key, present.
Peter Michelson, present.
Okay. And Pete Saladino will be joining us a little late. His train was delayed, so he's en route, but he'll be here in probably 15 minutes. Jill is sick, so she won't be with us this evening. So, our agenda this evening is the first item is some approval of minutes, but we don't have any minutes yet. So I think Jill never got around to finishing them up for the 14th and the 28th. I think was it Peter's, I think Peter Saladino had those.
Oh.
Yeah, not
Well,
you.
looking at
Not
me,
you.
I thought,
Not
oh,
you.
God, no,
Yeah.
not that.
Frank, are you able to, I sent you that calendar?
Yep.
You able are you able to present that? That'd be great. So we'll go over the calendar a little bit. And then there'll be, I'll make a little presentation on sort of the update to the omnibus budget guidance. And then we'll get into the department review, starting with the school. And Jeff and Mike are here, as well as Tim. And we'll finish up with facilities. We'll hear from Rob Quinn, IT, and the Historical Commission. And then Brent will give us an update. We'll go through the municipal building capital stabilization appropriations and get an update on any warrant articles and some town finance. So that's really the agenda. And I don't know, Frank, are you able to find that? So on the calendar, I've laid out the next, including this meeting, this meeting and the next 3 meetings. And so,
Steve, I'm sorry, still not letting you share.
now let me share. Okay, I'll see if I can do it. Hold on a second. Let's see. Just open it up. Let's see. All right. So I just sent the request. Where was Brittany? I sent the request to share. You yeah. Okay.
Coughing for a month.
Okay. So oops, oh, there you go, okay. Um. So, oh, wait, they're not letting me, oh, there it is, okay. So next meeting, we have a 6 o'clock start, okay, on the 25th. And that is a joint meeting with the select board and us. We're gonna hear from, a developer, on the article for the, select board authorization to dispose of the property at Medfield State Hospital. And, I have asked, that, they limit that. It's the first meeting to introduce, the article and hear from the proposed, a potential developer. I've asked that they limit that to like an hour and a half, so by 7:30, we will have a hard stop. And then, we'll commence our regular meeting, okay? And, we will hear from Park and Rec then, at that meeting, the police, budget, which we weren't able to get through the last meeting, the chief was ill. And then, water and sewer, the Board of Health, Council on Aging. And while Park and Rec is here, we will hear about their 2 articles around the modulars and the revolving fund, the change in the revolving fund. And then also, while the water and sewer folk, while Mo's here, we'll hear about the cemetery expansion construction article. And, potentially the Harding Street infiltration and inflow project. They're trying to decide whether that's gonna stay on the warrant. And then on the 11th, Yvonne will come in and talk to us about the overlay account. And then, we'll hear from Georgia on the investment accounts. And then we will have the senior, Yvonne will talk about senior veterans exemption and tax work amendment. And then we'll have, probably the bulk of the meeting will be dedicated to the zoning articles. I think there's potentially 4 of them. And we'll get an update on the free cash, articles. And then on the 25th, we've scheduled the Danielson Pond Dam article with the Conservation Commission. Deb Barrow will be here to talk about that. And there's another article on the Conservation Trust Fund. And, third article is also, being sponsored by the Conservation Commission on water conservation, private well restrictions. So we'll get through all of that on the 25th, and hopefully that will get us through all the articles, other than the routine financial ones, which we're dealing with. So, all right. Okay. So,
That's the word of the date and everything.
Hmm?
That's the word of the date and everything.
Actually, could you communicate that to her?
Yeah, sure.
That would be great. Yeah,
I was gonna ask, was the chief know the new date?
I believe the chief
Yes, she'll be joining us via Zoom that night.
via Zoom. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any other questions on this schedule or that? I think it hits everything that we haven't covered. So, now let me see if I can find, let's see that.
Yeah,
Can you want to send me that presentation?
I actually.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a PDF. Okay, good. Oh, okay. All right.
No 2 minutes, Peter just arrived.
Yes, Peter Saladino has joined
In the
us.
house.
You say you're
Hello,
present.
everyone. How are you? I'm present.
Okay, excellent.
Sorry, just want to make sure my notes are
Just back from the Super Bowl. Yeah.
Okay. Here we are. Okay. So, this is our second year of, working with the new budget process. And so I thought it would be just appropriate to refresh people's memories on, what the process is and what the goal is of what we've been working on, and also to go through some updates to the guidance that we've provided in December. Okay. And then so I'll cover a few of these slides, and then Frank and Christine will cover the rest of the slides, mostly about healthcare. But you'll see as we go through it. Does everybody get a handout? It looks like this. This is what we're going to walk through. Okay. So as you know, the process starts early, like in September, October. We start looking at revenue estimates for the town. And when we talk about revenue sources, it's really the property taxes, local receipts, state aid, and other available funds, right? And as you know, we've had numerous meetings throughout the fall with the goal of trying to nail down what the right revenue numbers are. We then also look at along with the finance team, the fixed costs that are shared amongst all departments, and they're big numbers. They're things like health benefits, general liability insurance, and debt service. Those are the big ones. And then we sort of look at the difference between what the forecasted revenue is, what the forecasted shared fixed costs are, and that difference gets split between the school and the town department. School 75%, and the town department's 25% of any incremental revenue, net revenue, after deducting the fixed cost. And as you all know, the goal here is to come up with an omnibus budget guidance within the Prop 2.5 framework, because that's our first mission, is to get the town meeting. We always have to have a budget that's within that Prop 2.5 framework. Okay. And I know sometimes there's confusion on what Prop 2.5 means, but basically it's not a limit on individual property tax bills of 2.5%. It basically got two caps. The first is what's known as the levy ceiling, and that's really that the property tax levy can't exceed 2.5% of the town-wide assessed value of property. And then there's an annual property tax levy, and that cannot grow by more than 2.5%, except for new growth. Okay. That's what's known as the levy limit. Okay, so you'll hear about that. So we can ask voters to exceed the 2.5% annual limit via an operating override or a debt exclusion. Those are the only two ways you can exceed the 2.5. And as you know, an override is a permanent increase in the tax levy, and can only be for it could be for any purpose, but it's a permanent increase in that levy. So it occurs every year. Exclusion override is a temporary increase in the tax levy, and that's used for capital purposes over the life of the debt or the borrowing, right? And there's no limit on the number or the amount of exclusionary overrides. And new growth is critical because as you know, Yvonne meets with us and she looks at building permits, and she decides sort of what's a good number for new growth. It doesn't have anything to do with market appreciation, right? It's all about development of new property or construction if somebody puts a new wing on their house or there's a development, the biggest new growth category we have in the future is the state hospital, right? So eventually when that does, when it happens, that will be positive, for new growth in 2027 or 2028, sometime in the future. So, and as we all know, we have to pass a balanced budget. We're not the federal government, so we have to get a balanced budget, and DLS, the state, make sure that we do that, right? So we can't exceed the budget, including the schools, right? So a municipal department can't exceed it, but that also includes the school department. And you must, if they do, you have to use reserves or some type of transfer from other areas of the budget to where there might be a surplus projected. But we can't end the year in a deficit. So this is why we spend all this time trying to be accurate about what the guidance should be to be within that Prop 2.5 framework. So I think that's pretty much, I think if there's going to be an override, we would look to whoever the collective department or departments to come forward and make that case for an override, right? But we will always need, if there's an override, we will always need two budgets. We'll need the budget within Prop 2.5, and we'll need an override budget. Because if the override doesn't pass, you have to pass a balanced budget, the one within Prop 2.5, okay? So that's just a refresher.
Can I just make one comment? Because I think that summary is terrific. And there's one other piece that I think needs to be addressed, which is, or at least brought up, is the financial policy and the compliance with it.
Yeah.
Insofar as, because we have reserve funds set up, we have, cash balances and, but those are all in compliance with the with the town's policy.
Yeah.
And I think that the significance of that is that it has a direct impact on our bonding.
Right.
And that in order to, ensure that we have a strong bonding position, which will impact, future borrowing, specifically the new school building, it's really critical that we meet that. So these are not arbitrary numbers. They're in compliance, and
Right,
we're very tight on that. So
Yeah. No, and there's sort of three legs to the stool, right? There's the financial policies that Bob just mentioned. There's the capital improvement plan, right? That sort of goes out 5 and 20 years. And then there's the financial forecast, which gives us a view out 5 years of what we think is going to happen, that Frank has the last couple of years worked hard to put together. So the three of those things sort of, inform us and how we get to, make our decision. So anyway, so on the revenue estimate, this is we've estimated the new revenue to be 1.9 million. This is for the whole town. And the tax levy, there's the 2.5% increase. There's new growth estimated at 400,000. And then the excluded debt is going down. So that's actually a favorable $488,000 relief on the tax levy. And then local receipts, we're estimating at 5.2 million. That's an 8% increase. The biggest item there is the motor vehicle excise tax, and then investment income. If you remember, we spent a lot of time on investment income in the fall, meeting with the treasurer, trying to, nail that down. State aid is estimated at 8.9 million. It's a 1.5% increase. And that includes unrestricted governmental general aid, as well as Chapter 70. And then there's an offset to state aid, which is the assessments that they charge us, and that's going up by 1.5%. And then there's some other available funds that are fairly small that come into the picture too. The revenue, this is our revenue, so you can see property tax is our largest revenue number. It's going up 2.3%. State aid is going up 3.5%. The third largest revenue source is local receipts, and that's going up almost 8%, 7.94%. And then other available funds, and then there's the enterprise fund offset, which is the water and sewer overhead charge that we recoup. So that's a 2.68% increase in our revenue. And on the fixed cost side, these are again shared town and school costs. We have liability insurance. There's a 5% increase forecasted. And there's some insurer credits that offset the impact of that. A $25,000 decrease in unemployment trust fund, and a $46,000 overall decrease. I'm going to leave health insurance for a minute. Christine will cover that for us. Our debt service is going down, as I mentioned. Most of our debt is exempt debt. And then the appropriations not requiring appropriation are basically there's an overall decrease of 142,000, and it's primarily driven by drop off in the Medfield State Hospital purchase assessment. So these are the numbers. You can see 6% reduction in liability insurance, employee health insurance and benefits. This is showing a 5.4% increase.
This is the original December guidance.
Oh, okay. This is
This
okay.
is
Sorry.
original.
Okay, this is original. Okay, so we'll get to the updated one. So in December, this was what we used as the. And then you can see the debt going down 11%, expenditures not requiring 15%, and then Tri-County assessment. Okay, I'm going to let Frank, Christine's going to cover these the updates. So that's what we in December. That was the guidance we came up with, right? It was the 3.7% increase, right, to the departments. And so since then, we've talked about some of these, but Christine's going to take us through what's changed since then.
I just saw that. I wish I had a picture of break when it's quite a few. We're going to have that in place and then.
So these are this is our updated for February. Few things. The enterprise offset is showing a decrease from what we anticipated in December. We anticipate once Andrew finishes updating the enterprise offset with the new class of compensation wage tables, that we'll actually see an increase in the enterprise offset. But as of today, we're showing a decrease. The select board at a most recent meeting voted an increase in your transfer station stickers. So we have additional revenue coming in for that at $17,500. And state aid, we always use the governor's budget as we refine our estimates, and that shows an increase of our revenue at $103,681. So our new February guidance for revenue, we picked up $118,000 in revenue.
That's the good news.
That's the great news. We finished there. I can now give you an update on our fixed cost estimate. The leading one, which is health insurance. When we met 2 weeks ago, we had a health insurance presentation. We talked about the rate increase was being advertised from 10 to 20%. They were asking us to rethink our budgets at 15. We had originally looked at a 10% budget increase. I got the call late Friday that our actual budget increase for our health insurance rates is 16.92%. So this fixed cost estimate reflects that increase in what that budget is at 192,868. We are able to do a reduction of $17,279 in our liability and workers' compensation budget. We have updated all of our credits that we get from Maya, who does our workers' comp and liability insurance, and we're using over $80,000 in credits to bring that budget number down. We do show an increase in the governor's budget in our offset, and we just were notified today that we have a slight decrease, in our Tri-County assessment. And we have just a very small increase in the pension at 6,829. So we have a fixed cost estimate of an increase of 197,303. So I just want to go over the health insurance timeline. I know we talked about this last week, but just as a refresher, last January we were able to secure the PDC agreement for plan design. That resulted in issuing a deductible to our plan design and was a decrease of 2.2% and saved the town and the employees in total a little over $700,000. In September, we were notified that the retiree MedX plan was increasing 20.46. We talked about that last fall. That was an increase that we were seeing across the board for all retirees, no matter your community. In November, we received our guidance as we began the budget process, and Maya advised us the 10% increase for budgeting purposes. In January, they announced the rate increase of 10 to 20, and then just this past week, we learned that we were 16.92. So these are the numbers and shows the change in what we're budgeting. It's a difference between the original budget amount of 527,682. We are now increasing that health insurance budget to 720,550. So that's a difference of 192,868.
Christine, how does this compare to the 9 million on the original fixed cost overview for the health insurance line?
I don't know where I'm sorry.
Just 2 pages back, like not the blue page.
Oh, that's good. I think that's got pension in it too. So that's, I think it's got the pension.
Yeah, you've got the pension in
Okay,
there.
and then the other one that didn't line up for me was the Tri-County assessment. The FY26 estimate was 145,780, but then that was the updated number as opposed to the estimated number was 152,924. You know what I'm saying?
145 was the updated.
Oh, yeah, 145.
But that was like listed as the like.
Okay.
I must have put the updated, we just got the number hours ago, so I just put it in here, so I must have put it in wrong.
So the original estimate was wrong and the correct.
I think the numbers are
145.
reversed, yeah.
So, yeah, we.
The numbers are reversed, not column. Correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. You should read Tri-County assessment. Originally, we'll update that for you.
So what,
So that'll be an increase.
that'd be an increase of 7,000?
No, so we originally anticipated an assessment of 152,000. So that number, 152, should be in this fiscal year
Got it.
26 column. That should be.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, thank you. And we'll fix that. We'll send out an updated copy to you before we put it on the website. Next slide. As you can imagine, health insurance has been a big topic of discussion for all of the town administrators. The superintendents are having the same conversations as the town administrators start to roll out these increases. Norfolk County just did a survey of the towns looking at what their increases are. So I wanted to provide you with what some of the other towns are also facing with their double-digit increases. This appears it's happening whether or not they are Maya or GIC town. We are anticipating these double digits. We do have an outlier in Medway, although they did double what they anticipated their actual versus their budgeted. That is due to, they're spending down a significant number of reserves to bring that cost down. I had lunch with the town administrator from Medway yesterday, and they also have had incredibly good experience and haven't had any cases that have gone to their stop loss insurance. So they're based on their experience is why they're keeping their rate down so low. We talked to a few other towns that are not included on here that came in late this evening. For example, Holliston has been asked to leave the West Suburban Health Group because their experience is so poor. They tried to join the Maya insurance. Maya would not bid on them, and they are now being forced to go to the GIC based on their experience alone. So we'll have some more towns to update that came in this evening.
Okay. Well, that's, I mean, we've all read about it and know about this. Well, the Mass General's got a $250 million shortfall. They're laying off, going through layoffs and.
I do
So-
have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with the chair of the PEC group to go over this with them and determine whether or not we want to try and attempt any last minute plan design changes before we get to town meeting and to see if we can bring this 16.92% down. As you know, we just entered the first year of our 3-year PEC agreement, but I'm sure they're not going to be happy about the 16.92 as well. This is a shared cost for employees and the town. So I'm hoping those conversations, I can provide you an update at the next meeting, but we will have a PEC meeting to have that discussion.
So does this reflect an experience in the town that's higher than the norm?
So I reviewed our loss ratios today, and what I found when I went through them in terms of experience is that we have a significant number of claims that are hitting about the $120,000 mark. When you're in the Maya Health Benefits Trust, $125,000 is the initial, is the internal stop loss insurance. So if you have a case that hits $125,000, it gets pulled out into the rest of the Maya group. If that particular case hits $250,000, it gets kicked to the reinsurance company and comes out of the risk pool for everybody. Unfortunately, I would say a third of our cases are at the $120,000 to $123,000 mark. So we're just below where they would be moved out to that risk pool, which is what's increased our loss ratio so high. We're also seeing an increased utilization across all of our plans in Medfield. So it's a combination of all of those things. And as we talked at our last meeting, we're also seeing a tremendous increase in our prescription drug coverage as well. So the last slide, I wanted to just update you. This was the December 2024 guidance that you gave to the school and the town. And this is now the February 2025 guidance based on these new numbers in terms of new revenue and new fixed cost estimates. So this is the updated percentages in monetary difference.
So, you know, as we talked last year, we might remember last year, we had a similar update, except it went the other way, right? It was a positive change from December. So unfortunately, this is going, you know, the opposite way this year.
I do want to, if I can just take a moment, I just want to thank all of the town employees and school employees. We are able to use $80,000, I mentioned, in credits to the property and casualty insurance. That is due to our employees taking courses. We do trainings with both the town and the school staff, and that we've been able to generate a significant number of credits to be able to use to lower that cost for this year. So
That's great. That's great. Okay, well, thank you very much, Christine. Appreciate that.
I wish it was better news, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know but
Could you just, before you get off the slide,
Sure.
sorry.
Yeah.
Just right as you switch to off. I don't
Right.
really, what are you trying to show on that, February, December thing?
So you initially gave the schools in the town guidance on how much money would be available for revenue. That's updated on February because now we have increased costs to the guidance that was issued. So there's less money available for revenue to split between the schools and the town.
I forgot, I can't, you
That's
want me to
okay.
pull back up
That's all
or?
right. I'll live.
Got it. All right, yes, I'm gonna just pull up Jeff's. Any other questions on that guidance?
Steve, I think they're going to fix different PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna send it to me?
Yep.
This is a slide, is this a slide you're at?
Yeah, I don't understand why the driving of costs changes the revenue.
Because the fixed cost, you're taking the total available revenue minus the fixed cost,
Mhm.
and that's the remaining revenue. When the fixed cost goes up, that's gonna lower the amount of available revenue.
Yeah, it's basically
It's a
the-
subset of revenue, okay.
yeah, it's revenue minus.
Yeah.
fixed costs. Um, Go to China.
You consider healthcare costs to be fixed costs?
Yes, because it's a shared fixed cost. It's a cost that all employees, school and the town department share.
That's fixed in terms of fixed, not fixed in terms of fixed. and
Yeah, it's kind of an
variable.
odd way to think.
Well,
of it.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
you look at it.
It's a shared cost.
Shared cost.
Right.
Okay, so. You guys want to come sit up here?
Sure.
And, I mean, the sound is pretty good picking up, but probably better if you sit there. Yes, Ed, we can start.
So if you give me 1 minute, Jeff, I'll introduce you. The dynamic duo here. But before we get into that, Steve sent out an article last week, and I hope everyone had a chance to read it. It was called, the title was "We Are on a Downward Spiral." If you had a chance to read it, it was pretty alarming. And it's about all of the school districts that are having just tremendous difficulty trying to meet their budgets. And within that, they start referencing all of the adverse impacts that they're having, and I copied them down here. It's inflation, rising costs of special ed, loss of federal pandemic aid, health insurance, transportation increases, state assistance not keeping up with costs. All of those factors. All of which check.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I thought about that, there was probably only one federal impact, federal pandemic aid. That was in the rearview mirror for us now, but when we got it, we used it for the purposes for which it was intended. We followed the guidelines. And so that's not hurting us because we weren't relying on that money. We used it properly. But all of those other factors have really, really hurt us. And, here we are, we still haven't got a balanced budget, it's still a work in progress. And it's just underscores the title, we're in a downward spiral. So difficult.
Yeah.
When we get into some of the numbers, you'll see it, particularly when we get into the circuit breaker numbers, it's scary. So after Jeff goes through his presentation, Mike and I, we have like 6 slides, one of which has 4 of them are the revolvers, which I thought was big revolvers, which I thought were important for us to be aware of and understand the balances in there, how they're going to be used. And then the other typical one on payroll, special ed. So with that, let me turn it over to 2 people who helped me so much.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks everyone for the opportunity. I just want to recognize Ed for the work that he's done the last few weeks. He really digs in deep, and it was in full audit mode for the last couple of weeks and did a great job. So I really appreciate it. And I think, the commitment that he has to this is really important. So I appreciate that. Ed. Thank you. I'm just going to go through a few slides with our presentation. It's similar to what we did with our public hearing last week or 2 weeks ago with the school committee. Just trying to hit the high points of it. I won't go into the details. And as Ed said, he and Michael have the spreadsheet slides that they want to go through. So always want to frame the work around our mission that drives our work every day and why we do what we do each day. I think it's always important when we're talking about money and what our district does to really do that around our mission. Our timeline was fairly typical. What we've done in the past, we start in October. The school committee looks at a schedule for us and develops a calendar. You guys provide us the guidance, and then Michael and I meet with all the principals, directors, and everyone around in administration to kind of go through what their wants are. We really try to do a zero-based budgeting. We try to say, okay, what do you need? You don't look at last year's budget, say just add a percentage to it. We really look at what people need and build a budget from the base. So we do that, and Michael and I think we had 23 meetings this year going through all that, all in preparation for our presentation to the school committee in December, which we do each year, which is our first number. And our first number is always a lot higher than what we end up with and where we go once we get in front of you folks. We had our public hearing on the 30th of January, and then certainly meeting with you folks now and then getting to a number that works for the community for town meeting in May. So we made some assumptions as we went through this budget in FY26 that our federal entitlement grants will be level funded. So crossing fingers that will continue. We have a good amount of money in our federal entitlement grants, about $700,000 that we'll use.
Hold on just a
Yeah.
second. For some reason I couldn't, I'm having a problem with.
You lost it.
I don't know why. Kind of weird, isn't it? Try to reload it.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you while, because
Yeah.
you mentioned federal
Mhm.
entitlement grants, in light of what's going on in Washington, are we worried about what might happen to some?
Yeah, we're definitely worried about it. Yeah, I mean, we've looked at it. We discussed this at our public hearing because we pay almost all of our teaching assistants out of federal money. So if that goes away, we're in trouble. And I think not only us, but every district in the state and the country is going to be in trouble. I mean, I read an article that said something like 10% of all school budgets are funded federally, 13% in the state of Massachusetts. So we'd be in some difficulty if that were the case. We would lose all that money that we pay our employees with.
How much of the budget is federally funded? Is it just that part?
So we're like 700,000. But I have a couple of slides that go through all that. What we have for federal entitlement.
Okay, I'm
Did that
back.
work?
I'm back, so I'm sorry.
So our assumptions, again, with the grants, that our chapter 70 will be increased. So we use the government budget, which increased our chapter 70 by 178,000. We are continuing the reduction of tuition for kindergarten. And you'll see as we move toward tuition-free full-day kindergarten, we move 2 positions that were in the revolving account into the operating budget, which accounts for some of our increase. And then as Ed mentioned, circuit breaker, which offsets our special education costs, will be funded at 75%. So that's what it has been the last couple of years. What we don't know is what transportation will be reimbursed at, and that's kind of the wild card right now. We're hoping that's going to be funded at 75, but we know the actual tuition piece will be funded by 75%.
What is circuit breaker?
So
New here.
no, that's okay. That's okay. So circuit breaker is the money we get reimbursed for cost of special education. So there's a threshold that's set every year. Once you go over that threshold, you submit that to the state, they reimburse you a certain amount. So we'll see, Ed and Mike will have some pretty good slides on that show what we've used over the past couple of years. So our 4.7% increase, which we have right now, this is the cause of it. So looking at existing staff, new positions, and our expenses. The biggest one you'll see is our teaching staff, steps, lanes, percentage increase in longevity. That's an increase of 1.2 million. For our professionals, you see a decrease, not because we're reducing staff, but because we're moving them into the revolving account and out of operating. And then our other staff, so that's all other staff that's not Unit A or Unit B teaching, would be 188,000 increase. So total increase in staffing is 1.4 million. I think you'll see every school district in the state there, 85% of their budget is personnel. We're no different. So we did add some new positions in our budget. As I said before, we put in 2 kindergarten teachers transitioning from the revolving account into the operating budget. You'll see that's 149,000. Definitely a need for behavior therapists and adjustment counselors at the elementary level. So those are 2 positions you'll see that are in there. But Dale Street actually asked for a full-time adjustment counselor, and we put in for a part-time 0.5, and then a speech therapist. We need that additional support and special education at our high school. So that's making a fractional employee of 0.7, a full-time employee of 1.0. That's where the 0.3 comes in. So those additional positions get us an additional 312. And then our other expenses, which again, as Ed had mentioned, inflation, things that are going up, our supplies are going up, technology continues to go up. Special education tuitions, you'll see it's not going up as much as it has in the past because we do have students aging out. So we once a student ages out at age 22, we no longer provide that service to them. So we're going to save a little bit of money there. Our general transportation, big yellow buses, an increase at 64, and then our out of district transportation will see an increase at 50. All total, that's 74,000 for the other expenses, with an increase of 1.8 million for FY26, and that makes up the 4.17%.
Yeah, sorry, the current contract, what is that, when does that, how long does that run?
Expires next year. Yeah, so we'll be
Fiscal-
negotiating next year, 2027.
2027.
Yeah. We're negotiating right now with Unit B that expires at the end of this year. The Unit B are all our teaching assistants. Some of our strategic initiatives that you'll see, again, the full day kindergarten, this is year one of moving into the operating budget, so we'll have tuition-free full day kindergarten. School safety and technology, I think, is the focus that we've had for a while, and that is part of this FY26 initiative. Communication, I think it's something that we're always trying to work on as a district to improve communication, and we're looking at particular software that's going to help us with that. Professional development, always focused on making sure that our staff is up to date and provides the best instruction for kids. And then I know Michael will talk about our capital budget, school department facility capital budget.
Do you mean communication with, what do you mean communication with parents or like,
Everybody.
like,
Yeah, so that, I mean, I would think,
I'm just curious what software.
so what we're looking at, I mean, that was one of our strategic initiatives, is looking at both internal and external communication. And we've been working on that. We had an audit done, and one of the items that came up was we're using many different mechanisms to communicate with parents, and we need just one platform to do it. So if you're a parent that has many kids, if you have a parent that has kids in 3 different elementary schools, you might have 3 different platforms from teachers. So we want to just standardize that across the board so that you have one app on your phone and you click on it and you say, I'm going to talk to Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones. You know, you're not going to be clicking around saying, okay, am I going to look at Class Dojo this time or Seesaw that time, or Aspen this time? And so that's really what we want to do, is just really get that platform so that everyone is on the same time.
I support that.
I think every parent I've talked to supports that for sure.
Yeah, maybe you might be touching it later, but
Sure.
The mission statement or the strategy on converting the kindergarten to that's 150,000 of the.
Yeah, so what we decided in our strategic plan, and also the school committee endorsed last year, is a 3-year plan to slowly move staff, both teaching staff and support staff that service our kindergarten, full day kindergarten kids into the operating budget. So we have a 3-year plan to do that, which FY28, that the year it goes, which
Yeah, we have it.
Is it-
Yeah.
in the revolving account, they'll go through that whole thing, Bob.
Okay.
But it's just, so we're scaling down the tuition and then moving staff in at the same time. So instead of, if we were to do this in 1 year, there's no way we could afford it, right? It would have to be an override just to do that. So we did the 3-year plan, school committee approved that so that it's incremental and that we can absorb it as much as we can in the budget. But you see, just that 1 year with 2 teachers increases that up to 249,000. Our student enrollment's fairly flat, you know, as you look at that. We do have some projections, and I just want to call your attention to FY27 kindergarten of 233 kids. So those are the COVID kids born during COVID. So we have a big group in here now. Whether it materializes, we'll have to see. Sometimes we have some parents that will hold their kids back in kindergarten and start them the following year. So it may not be 233, it might be 200, but it is a big group of kids coming through. That cohort we're planning for right now, because it's going to be a 2-year issue in every building as they go through elementary school. So we'll have to make arrangements for that. Whether we don't have a lot of space in our schools, so we'll have to just utilize space to add 2 or 3 classrooms, depending on how many kids.
With that many, you'll need 2 more teachers.
Yes, for sure.
Dr. Garza, wait, COVID kids, what do you mean? Wasn't that been 2025? Not 2027?
No, these were kids that were conceived in COVID. We had a big birth rate jump in Medfield during that time.
Oh, I
They're
didn't.
kindergarten.
Yes.
Oh,
If
okay.
you look at the births in the year,
They're
that
what,
is a
5 years old?
big jump.
Yeah.
It's a big jump.
Huh.
Go figure.
Okay.
A lot of time on the hands back then.
Unless you already had kids.
Yeah. So you'll see that, and then our high school continues to, there'll be a little bit above the next couple of years, but it's fairly flat. Looking forward to the next, and these are all based on NASDAQ projections. We get projections from the Lincoln School Development Council in the fall, in the spring every year, so we update them as we go along. As soon as we get them, we talk about them in school committee, we post them on our website, so once we get them in the spring, we'll do that. We don't anticipate a lot of changes. So here's the offsets that we talked about. These are the revolving accounts, which I know that Michael and Ed will go into great detail, but you'll see that we tend to generate over $3 million a year to offset our operating budget. That doesn't count the grants that we go through as well. But this was in the book that you should have, the budget book that you should have gotten, the flip book. So I'm not going to go over every single part of that. These are the projected grants. Here's our federal grants, and you'll see that the big one here is the special education 240, 674, which really funds almost all of our teaching assistants. We have some smaller grants in there too. Sometimes we have Title I, sometimes we don't. It just whether or not the district qualifies for that. Because we're on the cusp for Title I, they told us some years you're going to get it, some years you're not going to get it. So when we do get it, it's about $80,000, $90,000. We don't get it, it's just not there. So we planned on not putting it in our budget because one year we planned on it and we didn't get it. And we found out in August that we were down 90,000. And then Chapter 70 is at the bottom. That's the biggest number from the state. Again, it's over $7 million, but based on other communities, it's not a lot of money that comes from the state. Comparably speaking from other communities around us. Ashley, do you have a question on
I
it?
did.
Yeah.
You mentioned Title I. I'm struggling to find it on there. What is it? Where is it?
We don't have it. We're not playing with Title I.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have it. So sometimes we do have it, sometimes we don't. Title I basically allows you to target one particular, for our case, some districts it's the entire district. But for us, we target one school for intervention, whether it be math or reading. And we use the funds toward that. So we typically use the funds toward staff members that supplement and provide instruction for kids one-on-one. So when we get that, we do. When we sometimes we're not counting on it this year, next year. So this looks at the entire budget by school, and you'll see that the Memorial School goes up the most, and that's only because we're adding those 2 kindergarten teachers back into the budget. And we have your therapist in there, so their FTE goes up 3. Wheelock is 175, and these are mostly increases to teachers via longevity steps, cost of living, etc. That's what most of this is. You'll see there's no variance in the FTEs for Wheelock. Dale Street goes up, and that's partly because of the 0.5 that's added in there. Blake goes up, and that's all just increases to salaries, no increase to variances. High school, same. High school is our biggest population of staff. So that's going to be a large number there. And there's a 0.3, which was a speech and language pathologist that we talked about. And then district services, student services, and policy and administration, not going up a heck of a lot, and certainly not adding anything to the FTEs in those areas. Do you want to talk about it? Yeah, thank you, Michael. So one of the things that we've had this year, which I think it's the biggest since Michael and I have been working together. We have lane changes. We have 43 lane changes. So if you don't know how teachers are paid, there's steps that go by year, and then there's horizontal lanes that go in their salary schedule based on whether they get degree attainment. So as they go across and get degree attainment, it goes across. We have 43 this year, and we've never had that much. So that's a lot of people moving horizontally. So some of them could be moving horizontally and vertically with a step and a cost of living increase. So that doesn't happen very often to us. We typically have, like about 15 or 20. We've never had this many. So that's, driving some of this as well.
And contractually, if they get another degree, they get a boost in pay.
So that's the horizontal piece. So 43 in 1 year is a lot for Medfield.
And then on that, my understanding is that a lot of teachers are taking advantage of doing online.
So yeah, I think it's a little bit different. So years past, when this was all set up, years and years ago, there was no online schools at that time. So it was a lot more difficult and took a lot longer time for teachers to move horizontally. But I think you have the opportunity now, as we all do, to go online and learn and do online classes, and you may be able to do 2 or 3 at a time without leaving your house. And it's not commuting to BC or commuting to Framingham State or something. So I think educators across the country have taken advantage of that and allows them to move horizontally a lot quicker than they ever did. So one of the things that we wanted to do this year, and these are numbers that we applied some factors to get to, is we wanted to look at what the projection might be for 27 and 28. And these are the functions that are that DESI requires us to report in. So Michael took what we had for averages in district leadership, instructional services, et cetera, down to the 9,000 figures. And he applied those averages to the FY26 and then again, to FY26, then again to FY27 to get the 28 numbers, just to give a sense of like the direction that we're heading, what we're looking at. We don't think it's going to be that large, the 47 and the 49, but it just gives you a sense in terms of the planning of what direction we're going in. And you see the most of it is looking at instructional services and salaries that we move across. So it's a little bit of projection, but we thought it would be important to just put that out there to the community to kind of get a sense of what we're looking at in the future.
Well, if you look at that 4.7% against the current 3.5%, it's a big clip.
Yep, sure is.
Well, we appreciate you doing this. And I think Frank pulls together an omnibus projection,
Right.
like goes out 5 years. And I think, Frank, are you in the process of updating that? You're doing that, so you'll take these numbers then in that update. Okay. Okay. That's the third leg of the stool I talked about, is that what that next 5 years looks like. And getting a glimpse of that will be helpful.
And I think the rough projections, I mean, a lot of things can happen. If we're looking at 80+% of our budget being staffing, you know, we took a lot of assumptions in that to get those numbers. And we're hoping that they're not going to be that high, but we just want to put it out there publicly. That's what potentially could happen. So looking at the 4.17% increase, and what does it include? It's the 2 FTEs that we talked about, the BCBA at Memorial and the 0.5 adjustment counselor at Dale Street. Also, any instructional software pieces that we seem to have increases. We have a lot of those license increases, so we're counting on that. Increase cost of living, steps, lanes, and longevity to all of our collective bargaining agreements. We have 5. Increase to transportation, both general and special education, then our increase to supplies and services. So one of the things that we had our last go around is we had almost all 5 of them in the same year, the collective bargaining agreements. And we kind of spaced that out a little bit so that the teachers are standalone, which is our biggest bargaining unit and the biggest cost. So we're going to be negotiating next year for the following year. And then Unit B, before was Unit B and teachers Unit A at the same time, which was a little unwieldy in terms of the cost, but also the amount of meetings and negotiations that we had. So we did split that. That was a one and done, never doing that.
Excuse me, Unit B is what?
Unit B is our teaching assistants. And their Mass Teachers Association as well. Unit A is all of our classroom teachers, and Unit B is our teaching assistants. So I think when we go through this, there's a number that we came up with in your guidance at 3.59, which I think has changed since then. So the gap is now, quick math was 310,000, now to 251.
That's what I got.
So I think that's what it ends up being. So I just want to share a couple of things. So as we go through those meetings, and we have the 20+ meetings with our principals and directors and administrators, there are positions that are asked for and we don't include in the budget. So I want to just kind of go over a couple of those, because just because they're not in the budget doesn't mean the need doesn't go away, right? The need's still there. So it's important for us to kind of just verbalize this and let the public know about it. So that 0.5 adjustment counselor at Dale Street, that we put half of that in there, so that's the other half of it. Math specialist at Dale Street, a 0.3 reading specialist at Wheelock, building sub at Blake, which is a perennial ask that hasn't been made yet. 0.2 math specialist at Blake, 0.4 wellness teacher at the high school, which was a cut a few years ago, and they're trying to get that back so to offer more electives for kids. And then looking at the instructional coaches. So one of the instructional coaches is something that we've had in budget requests for many, many years. So those are folks that go in and work directly with the teachers, model lessons, develop curriculum, do all that kind of stuff. I think if you go to any district around us, they all have them. We don't have them. So I think if there's one ask that I would put back in the budget, if we could, it would be those positions. I know they're not going back in for FY26, but that's something that we really want to consider in the future. Those are really critical positions that works along with teachers, right alongside with them, give them feedback. It's not evaluative, it's just working with them to develop teaching. And I think it's whether you're a first year teacher or a 25th year
What does
teacher.
that all add up to?
I'm sorry.
What does that all add up to that slide?
Oh, what is it all? I don't think we did total on that slide. Yeah.
Or 15 maybe. Maybe.
So they're never gonna get it, so it kind of.
No, listen, you gotta put it on
Well,
the
you-
table.
you-
You gotta vocalize it. You gotta add it up.
No, I hear you.
Okay. So they're like
About $500,000.
I mean, we asked Christine did the same thing for the town, if you remember.
It's about a half a
It's,
million.
Let's call it $500,000 between
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah, for sure. So the other piece is, we always look at per pupil expenditure. So how do we compare with other districts and what we spend per student? You'll see that, we are in the group that we have, we're at 19,960. So just ahead of Medway, just below Millis. And you'll see the other districts that are spending above us. I would say that the average is 21,000 in the state. And I just want to make the point that if we spent the average per pupil, that our budget would be $3.5 million more. So I just want to kind of put that out there if we spent the average, because we don't. The budget would be more like 48 million, not all the rest of it. And capital, might be want to go through the capital. Unless do you want us to go through capital or? would you
Well-
rather go through the schedules?
Well, maybe we can, because we're covering it's all municipal building, right? Or is it regular capital?
This is only for the school department.
Right.
On a building,
But
it's on a building.
it's
If
included
you
in,
want to have some questions, they're here, so.
Yeah.
Answer the specific line items.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, we have Rob here too.
So, as you know, we're redoing the 20-year capital plan. Our Street is actually the company that we hired to redo the 20-year capital plan. This is Rob.
Excuse
Quinn.
me, yeah, so
Yep.
introduce
This
Rob.
is Rob Quinn, our new facilities director for town.
Good evening.
And welcome. We're
Welcome.
happy you're here.
Rob has a background in project management and facilities also, so he will prior communities as a facilities director, but he also worked for firms as a project manager, so he's seen both sides of both the private side and the public side. So
School building committee's best friend.
yes. So
You just don't know that yet.
No. So, when Rob came in, we felt that, we took the projects that were already, into our plan and just, renamed some of them, to make it more, easier for, Rob to work with. And we'll go through that, but starting, I think, next year, we're gonna present to you a 20-year capital plan, broken down into 5-year segments, so that we know not only what the projects are, but a financial schedule that goes with those projects as we move forward. But in the meantime, for next year, we felt that, there are needs in the district that have to be met, both for schools and towns. Rob reviewed most of them, agreed with what we had on there. So we do have a capital plan for fiscal year 26. Then moving forward, we will have a 20-year plan that will be put together with a financial schedule that will go with it. So you want me to walk through these quickly? Or?
Sure, you want me to take them? You want to take them?
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
So we'll hit them per school. I'm not going to read them all to you, but I'll just give you this because they're redundant. So we'll start at the high school. When you see electrical upgrades, we're mainly looking at interior and exterior lighting of the high school and to upgrade some science labs. And building envelope to simplify it is anything you can touch on the outside of a building. That's the roof, the windows, the siding, the gutters, anything that we have that you can touch in that building, which gives us flexibility to deal with window failures, deal with some roof leaks and so forth. The Medfield Outreach Program is a program that occupies space in the high school that they've grown, they've outlived their space that will suit their needs right now. So we're looking to upgrade that. We had some architects in to give us some ideas, to give us some budgetary numbers to move forward with that. Flooring is the way that I run buildings, the way I've run in the past, and we all see how tight budgets are.
try to do everything in phases, okay? And what I mean by phases is you pick areas, and we'll just use flooring as an example. You pick an area, you know there's a concern. Commonly, it's a safety concern or just failing floors. And so what we're doing now is a generating plan, like Michael said. Right now, the way I see this, it's a bridge year. FY26 is a bridge year. The way I look at it, because I don't know enough about the district yet to project. So let me get my feet on the ground, learn a few things, build this phasing. And right now we're looking for $40,000 to continue the phasing of flooring upgrades at the high school. HVAC improvements, you'll see that throughout the district. It's a need. The buildings are all, you know, we know the age of the buildings, we know the age of the equipment. We do have some nice equipment out there, so a lot of nice work's been done in the past, but we need to keep moving forward. That we can't ignore that. And what our goal is to get a platform throughout the town, including the town buildings and the schools. And what I mean by a platform, it's a direct digital energy management system that we can remote into. We can set schedules, we can do setback to save energy. We can get alerts when there's issues, so we don't come into school on a Monday morning to a flood. And our goal right now, and we're working towards it, it's going really well. There's a lot of good support out there for this. And our goal is to get on a single platform that's not proprietary, that we can have the discussion. What you're going to see on this, which is in parentheses, you'll see a roof replacement at $6.6 million at the high school. That's not an ask. That's just letting the town know, let the townspeople know that there are needs for our roofs. And that's today's dollars. So every day we wait to do these roofs, that dollar is going to go up, that amount's going to go up. But you'll see that throughout the district. And right now, Memorial School and Blake Middle School, the roofs are in top shape. We're doing multiple patch jobs to try to keep going. But Michael has a plan in place with the MSBA that's going to help us going forward. But I just want to get that out there because I don't want to come to you guys 2 years from now and say, listen, we need a new roof at the high school that's brand new to you. So that's why it's on this page.
So that's the 19 million.
Where is
It's at the bottom of the page. 19 million, 19.1 million.
Yeah.
Oh, so you got a little different.
Yeah. So that's the number in the revised 20-year plan update that came from Arrow Street, I guess. And that's for all schools.
That's cool.
So what happened in the 20-something years ago when they switched over the middle school and the high school, they did that switch but didn't replace the roofs. And the same thing happened at Memorial too. So I think that was kind of the end of the project. They kind of cut that out at the end, but now that's what we have. So those roofs are cool.
You can, I don't know if you remember, but the old plan, which was done in 2018, I think, 17 had 8 million. So this is doubled, more than doubled. And I think the plan is to try to bite this off one school at a time with the MSBA, help with the MSBA's help. So maybe applying this upcoming, in the next few months. For Blake, I think is the most.
Yeah, like middle school would be the first.
Lake and Memorial.
Yeah. And
So we're out on the street right now, so everyone's aware, we're out on the street right now to do a partial replacement, partial overlay of an area of Memorial roof that's failing. We just did the same thing at Blake for the winter. So we're trying to stay ahead of it the best we can with local funds and whatever funds we have available right now. The town does need to digest the fact that there's going to be some roof work.
Can I ask a question on capital budgeting for the school? Does that's not in the budget we just reviewed? Where is, who?
It's in, so there's a stabilization account. Municipal building stabilization account.
Yeah.
Which is about 1.2 million.
Uh-huh.
So all these projects come through that account.
maybe you know the answer. Does this 1.1 all come out of the municipal building, or does some of it come out of capital stabilization?
I think it's all municipal.
It's all municipal building, okay. So remember a month ago, we looked at the capital appropriations. There were some items in there for school. Like I think Dale Street had some tiles and some floor, the routine tile and floor updates that they do every year. But that's
It's not in this budget.
not in this.
This is operating.
No.
It shows up as a separate warrant article.
Yeah.
And the money is pulled directly from that fund. So you'll see it in the final budget worksheet. capital budget appropriations will be listed in a separate.
Yeah. Yeah, there's two separate articles, one for buildings and one for all other capital. Yeah, because we have two funds.
Yeah, there's regular capital, the capital for the town, capital budgeting for the town and for the school.
Yes, it's all it all comes out of one fund, the capital stabilization fund. So the police cars, the
Yeah.
fire engines, all that stuff. Anything that's not related to a building in a school is in that budget. This is just building.
And when do we put money in there? I know we always like take it out.
So, okay, so the
I'm glad you asked that
Sound
question.
meeting, but like-
the municipal, the building side has a dedicated override every year. So it's back in 2018, we did an override for $1 million. Every year that goes up 2.5%. The select board, approve that increase. So that's in the tax levy now. Okay, so we that funding source for the municipal building happens every year. It's about 1.1 million that goes into that municipal building fund. The capital stabilization fund does not have a dedicated source of revenue. Okay, and to date, we have used free cash. We've appropriated free
okay.
cash. So I believe, I think this year it's like 850, is it 850? We're
Requests.
no, that for free cash, we're appropriating. I think, anyway, every year it's $700,000 or $800,000 that we're putting in there, and then they appropriate out of it, so. That's our only source for funding those capital items is free cash right now. We don't have a dedicated, revenue source in the tax levy for that.
So when we like do the 75-25 split of the town revenue,
Yeah,
is there a separate line item that takes that out since it's shared across the two? Like how?
well,
you know what
okay,
I'm
so,
saying? Like-
so think of them as
Yeah.
they're two separate. Operating budget, which they've talked about so far, other than this building stuff. The operating budget goes through that formula of a 75-25 split.
Right.
That's this big.
Right? This does not.
Right.
This is goes through the capital budget committee. All requests are considered. Mike sits on that. Brent is on it. All the municipal building requests and the capital requests. So there's no formula to having that done. They just
Right.
submit their request and the capital budget committee decides what's the priority for.
Well, yeah, no, but I guess I'm saying, you're saying that we in 2018 started putting $1 million in and then it goes up every year by 2.5%. Like, where does that come off of the total town revenue?
The tax levy.
Yeah.
It's just added to, it's considered an override that occurs every year. So it's added to the regular 2.5 property tax revenue along with debt exclusions. So if you look in your book, do you have your book with you?
Yeah. I hope this is not
No, I
like
just think.
unhelpful, but
So. Look on page 31.
Yeah.
So you'll see there's the first line item is prior year levy limit. You increase that by 2.5%.
Yeah.
You add in the new growth. You add in the temporary debt exclusions, the borrowings, right? Because you're raising revenue for that. And then that next line is the override for municipal building stabilization fund. It's well, last year was 1.159. Okay, and then that gets you to the total property tax levy. Does that answer your question?
yes.
Okay.
So is this a vote that's taken at town meeting that requires a two-thirds vote that I just,
For what? For the, no.
well, it says the word override.
Okay, it was an override in 2018.
Okay,
And it was, I forget the term, what's it called? It's a special override, it's a continuing override, I think, something like that. So it happens every year unless the select board decides to stop it, okay?
Okay.
But it does go
There's
run
an
out
article.
town.
It does get approved by the town, yes.
Right, but it doesn't require a special two-thirds.
It's not, no, it's just a regular, vote, a majority vote. Okay,
But if the select board, as I understand, it, if the select board were not to increase it by the full 2.5%, then that becomes a number that
That becomes a
in
new.
perpetuity, yes. it were.
yeah,
So as long as, once it was passed, the 2.5% override back in that period with the initial 1 million, 2.5% growth is allowed throughout, so long as the select board still.
There's an IGR from the Department of Revenue. I'll send it to you all tonight so you can read, exactly the rules that you have to do a special stabilization.
They'll get you.
that's what's called special. But,
But for like the simple minded.
no,
Like this, I guess the reason why it's a little confusing for those of us that don't have a financial background is like, you're adding a number that is somewhat arbitrary, that like, that was a percent off of a previous number, that then becomes the total amount that everybody gets taxed, that gets divided by all of the assessments.
what do you mean by arbitrary? What part do you think is, you said?
Well, just mean like, everybody's taxed at an amount and you can't only increase it 2.5%, and that's that line item. But then you have these other, I guess it's just the override that,
Well, the initial
confusing to me, but, like-
number, say the million,
right,
would not have been arbitrary, right? It would have been,
Correct.
in order to get that passed, you'd have to put a number before the town, which in this case was 1 million.
yeah.
And then you vote on it. So no, I
Well-
just want to be clear, because it's
Yeah.
not arbitrary there. And then you get the
Right.
million and you say, okay, then we have the 2.5% growth.
well, okay, but the original article that got voted on in 2018 said it would start with 1 million, and it had in the article that it would increase by 2.5%. It described how it would work.
Right,
The town voted for it,
And they said,
okay?
of course,
So-
yeah,
Well,
So
but people,
the board goes through a vote every year, the select board goes through a vote every year, and they approve the 2.5% override. So it's not arbitrary, it's going up 2.5% a year.
okay, well, forgive me for saying arbitrary, but I guess I meant like, the town agreed before I even lived here, that we were gonna like add to our taxes.
Yes.
An amount of $1 million, and we'll
Yes.
add 2.5%
Right.
every year, and that's separate from the 2.5, the prop 2.5.
Yes, that's separate from the,
It's
that's,
just
So it's a-
outside, sorry, I
If
don't wanna
you
wait.
look-
your-
No, you're not.
It's
That's
like
what you
not
look at it.
that straightforward.
If you look at it, if you had $1 million in 2018, right?
in perpetuity.
And you were using it for construction, those same dollars in 2025 would be million plus, 200,000 because of inflation. right?
Sure, oh, yeah,
So inflation for the last 3 years has been going up 2.77, and this is going up 2.5, so it's not even keeping up with inflation. So you want to try to keep up with inflation to keep the number of projects going, so you're not going back into the bucket for this.
but
Should ask for like a bigger.
well, the reason that the town decided to do this was because we went years without buying police cars and, fire trucks and stuff like that. And so it was very much needed.
Oh,
Right.
sure.
And
Oh,
there was
I
a
don't mean to
20,
imply that at all.
20-year plan behind this of all the capital needs that far exceeds $1 million a year. Trust me on that. So,
But I think, Emily, to go to your question, and I think, which might be the confusing part, is that this 2.5 so this is considered revenue, but it goes directly into the municipal building stabilization fund. It's not revenue that can ever be appropriated for the operating budget.
Yeah, no, I
So we
remember
don't,
that,
we don't
yeah,
split it to 75-25.
yeah.
We review it on a project by project basis.
Yeah, that was my question, actually, because when and this is not to go down a rabbit hole, but when we met with the fire chief, they spoke about a $400,000 ambulance that they wanted to buy. And we just talked about a $500,000, we could have fully funded every wish list that they ever wanted. So I beg the question, why could we just not kick the can down the road on the brand new ambulance and get more for what we ever wanted in the schools? But it doesn't, the way we talk about these things can never.
So there's
We'll
two
get to
things
that.
on that. We have a dedicated ambulance mileage revolving fund.
Yeah.
So a significant portion of the ambulance will be funded with with the reimbursements we get from delivering ambulance service.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
But
that's all in it's all in the book here.
Yeah.
This, the sourcing of funds,
Yeah,
so which items are coming from which fund. So this, like you'll see the ambulance is coming from the ALS revolving fund. It doesn't come out of the capital stabilization fund. It doesn't take money away from other needs in town. There's a dedicated
Brittany has chocolate almonds. They're all-
ambulance fee that goes into a profit fund now. So, I'm gonna ask that we move on, because I think we beat this one to death.
Right.
Okay? All right.
Oh.
So, any questions on the roof, the $19 million? No, okay. All right, this is a schedule for payroll. Somebody-
Okay, yeah,
Is this yours?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
for
Good luck.
that. Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Careful up on the roof.
Are these your schedules?
Yes.
Okay,
Begin.
yes, please do.
Okay.
Yeah,
So Mike and I will both jump in on this and talk about this because we all put this together. But this is a similar schedule we've seen the last couple of years, but I think it's important to break out that huge payroll number of $1,722,000 into some of its component parts. It's a very big number. So if you go from top to bottom there, if you just look at the first row, teacher steps and lanes, going up 5.62%. There's a little note saying what that is, and Jeff referred to it, a lot of it, all of it, in his comments. We had 2 teachers going from the revolving fund into the operating fund. So paid for by the kindergarten revolving, now it's going into the operating fund. We have those other positions, the behavioral therapist, the adjustment counselor, the speech therapist. And collectively, they added up to that 312,000 that you saw in one of the slides. You back that out because that's extraordinary. That 5.62% becomes 4.5%. Then, if you look at it a little bit deeper, and Jeff talked about this as well, that lanes change. You looked at fiscal year 24, we had 19 lane changes. 25, we had 28. 26, we're gonna have 43. So that's 15. I you said 14. We counted about. But 15 at an average increase of about $4,000 just for that lane change is another 60 grand. Back that 60 grand off, and you're now down to about 4.25% as the increase in the teachers, and that would be, I'd say, level services.
now, can I ask you a question on this?
Yes.
Does this assume any retirement?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all around. Yeah.
So,
The 2. Yeah,
Sue,
yeah.
is there a chance you might hear more?
No,
no.
because they have to notify us by a certain.
Okay.
We may have more in the next year, in the 26th or 27th.
Yeah, but not for this
Just
budget,
looking
right?
at the scale, but not for this one.
Okay.
The next line, the paraprofessionals, and a little footnote, you see it going down 38,000. There are, even though they're, how do I want to explain this? So the 2 teachers. How do we explain? I forget the explanation for this.
Paraprofessional.
The paras, yeah.
Yeah, so number of paraprofessionals is not decreasing. We're just shifting it over to federal grants like.
That's it,
mentioned
yeah.
earlier.
Yes.
So there are 240 grant, which is our biggest grant, which is our special educational grant. We're shifting paraprofessionals into that grant to offset some. of
And we're shifting it in because we used some of that money last year for a consultant, and that consultant we no longer need. So that expense goes out of 240. We can freeze up money to put
frees up
more in.
grants and move.
So the operating fund goes down.
Okay.
All other staff, up 3.48%. We have steps and lanes in there too, but that's all your custodians, your secretaries and clerks, central office staff, administration, all of those combined, at 3.48%. And then these, we break out, within that, payroll summary for teachers, the longevity payments for everybody, the stipends, substitutes, and overtime. So that makes
Can
up.
I interrupt?
Pardon me?
Can I interrupt? Just,
Sure.
this is actually for Mike as well as you, but. So I'm just, fixated on what can go wrong. The federal funds,
Everything.
Yeah.
well, are we talking about this fiscal 26 money starting October 1 in the federal system? Money that's already been appropriated, and that's what we're contemplating spending, and that we might be in pretty good shape on. But we're not talking about what might be coming down the pipe the next fiscal year, are we?
No, so the way the federal grants work on the school side is the federal grants are good for 12 months. So, and the window that we have, it's September through August is our window. Okay, so we get funding in September, we can use it up to August, okay? Which doesn't go with the fiscal year, because when you report it, it's reported differently, right? So that's why some grants are reported within 2 fiscal years. We were assured that for fiscal year 25 this year, that federal funds are going to stay with the way they are. So that's, our 240, that's our E-rate, that's all those federal grants that we receive. For fiscal year 26, it's really all up in the air. We really,
Making the assumption.
we're making the assumption that everything's going to stay still.
God forbid the federal, you lost the federal money. I think the state would dip into their reserves. They'd have to give everybody what they would have deserved.
Yeah.
That's just me talking, but I can't imagine
Yeah.
that the states wouldn't do that.
So in order to bring the chapter 70 up this year, the governor is using the billionaires tax.
Million.
The millionaire tax to pay for, they've been paying for higher education with that for the last few years, but now they're shifting that and utilizing it for K to 12. I'm sure that some of that will probably be used to offset some of the costs, but we don't know.
I have a different question that, you had said earlier that 80% of your costs are, headcount related. And then we talked earlier that, there's this like 16% increase, 16.92 increase in healthcare, costs, which is, we called it a fixed cost, but that really meant it was spread over all the people. But then so that means if we looked at the numbers slightly differently and didn't look at it that way, this 4.8% increase is actually, probably much higher because there's so many people in that budget, right?
Let me try to explain. So there are shared costs, okay, that are not in the department budgets.
Right.
So healthcare is not in
Right, but I'm
any,
saying
it's not in any department.
right, but it's just in
The
real life,
schools,
though.
accounts, okay?
In real life, not on the budget line item. If there's the teachers are people, and if the healthcare cost for the people is going up at 16.92%, and therefore, if you zoom out, the schools have a bigger cost increase than the operating cost.
Yeah, mathematically, yeah, sure.
Yes.
You took all the shared costs.
Yeah,
saying-
if you allocate all those
Yeah.
shared costs to departments,
You're right.
right, you're right.
And I don't know if there's a point I'm trying to make, but that's
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, that's what you took all the shared costs and apportioned them. Everybody.
so I don't really have a point there, other than that's a
Yeah.
big increase.
If we were a regional district like TS, we would
Right.
incur all those costs. So regional districts have all the insurance costs. Town-based districts do not, so.
Well, he's talking from the we, meaning the school department.
Yeah, I understand that.
The we,
Some-
as
yeah.
the town, we incur the cost.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can move to the next one.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, this is special, that should be special ed. No, that was the, I'm sorry, those are the head counts related to the operating fund. I think we can go beyond that. We know the net effect is 1.8 people.
This slide, that
That's one, is special ed,
special ed, okay.
right there. Okay. We did this last year too. I thought it'd be important to go from 23 all the way through 26, so you can see some of the big numbers there. But if you just focus on 26 for a second, you can see that the tuition to the private schools, very top line in yellow there, 1,784,000 going up 196,000. And with that, and that basically is because we had a student move from line 4 there, the tuitions in math schools moved into the private schools.
Can I just talk a little bit about that? So these numbers do fluctuate because depending on what the child's needs are. So sometimes a child may move from a collaborative school to a private school. So you'll see there's fluctuation between those line items because it all depends on what the child's needs are and where that child is placed. So they could be placed in more of a, collaborative setting one year, but they could move into a private setting the next year. And then the other factor is once the child reaches the age of 22, the town is not responsible anymore to for educating that child. So we have to educate a child from the age of 3 to the age of 22. And then if the child continues to go into, let's say it's a residential placement, the state will take over from that point.
I apologize for not knowing this. What does collaborative mean?
Sure. Did you want to?
Sure. So educational collaboratives, Medfield belongs to two, the Accept and the Tech Collaborative. So they're a consortium of school districts that get together and they provide services for low incidence students. So if there's a situation where a student needs specific services that we can't do as a district, then they develop a program for it. So and it's at much reduced cost compared to private. So sometimes we can, sometimes a collaborative is a good fit for a kid here. Sometimes it's not. We have to look at private school because the needs are just so unique. But we belong to two of them, and it's a huge cost savings when we send kids there. We don't have a lot of kids in collaboratives right now. We do have a lot in private, but when we do, it's a great cost savings for us.
Do you get a revenue from that on the other side?
If
Like,
Sorry.
no, not circuit breaker. Like if a student from another district came to Medfield on a collaborative.
So collaboratives off-site. So if we have a program,
Oh.
yeah, so
sorry,
if we have a
forgive me.
program in district, we do get revenue from kids that come from other towns.
So that's where it says tuitions to math schools. So those are tuitions to schools that have programs within their district. Like
But where would you show like revenue from a student from another district?
it would show up on the revolving account, which will.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. No, but if you look at those lines, then you can see this movement. We had 18 people in the budget for 25. We're going down to 15 for 26. So it's the two people who aged out, the two students who aged out, and another student who will not be here next year. So we're really down 3. Hence, even with a price increase of almost 3.7% for all of the private schools, we're still coming in just 10,000 over last year on a gross basis.
And I will add to it that, this is something we've worked out as a district to develop programs to keep our kids in Medfield. In your flip book, you notice if you take a look at the special education circuit breaker reimbursement, FY08, there were 28 kids, FY09, 24, FY10, 35, 30 in FY11. So we've really made a conscious effort to develop programs in-house and keep our students here, which has been a huge cost savings.
So this is showing 15 students. In
Next year.
26. And the average, so the number of students has gone down, but the average cost has gone up.
Right.
It's a pretty big jump,
It
actually.
is, right.
173.
So the state's increase for private schools, that they know they gave us 1.65 for next year.
You remember a few years ago, that was 14.3.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Can you say that again?
So the state will set pricing ranges for private schools. So for next year, the increase for students that are going to private schools set by the state is 3.65%.
Okay.
Private school, the same as vocational school,
It's a private special education school.
private special education.
Before we move on to the next schedule, I just want to point out a couple of things here. If you just look at the circuit breaker offsets from left to right, had the 1,016 and 23, 1,095, 20 and 24 against a budget of 773. But the 24 budget planned on an offset using the revolver of 773,000. When all was said and done, we had to use 1,095. So you can just see how volatile that can be, because you need that to offset. Look, if you go to the top line, you can see that the tuition for private schools in 24 was 1,568 versus the budget of 1,312. Conditions can change quickly
Right.
in special ed. And that just shows you, then you would go across and now we're planning 885 for this coming year, 26.
But this, I mean, this, you're right, this is a ghastly number to nail down. But this was one of the reasons we created the special ed stabilization fund, right?
Yeah.
That's true, but then, let's go to the circuit breaker revolver now, and we can talk about that, because in order to qualify for that emergency, reserve that we set up, remember we had to first file for emergency relief. It had to be 25% over the prior year.
Yeah.
So that's a big number.
Yeah.
To be 25% over. And then you still have to go through all of the steps to get to that, because it really is an emergency fund.
Yeah.
And that's what we should, the schools should have enough money to, to take care of their own issues, say, if costs escalate fast.
Right.
When you think about it, you step back and you say, well, the town has reserves. We have the general reserve. We have reserves for different things. The school has one reserve. It's the circuit breaker. It's the only account that they have some control over.
Yeah.
And some influence over. They control it, all the influence over it. So that it's important to have enough money in there. And so let's talk about this circuit breaker revolver. So then you can see the receipts and the circuit breaker offset for the years. So for 26, we're looking at receipts of $821,000. Now, that's two numbers. You saw in the book that we handed in the flip book there, that we're getting $685,000 for the tuition piece of the reimbursement, but now there's a transportation piece. So we did some back of the envelope calculations there, and it could be in our estimation anywhere between $150,000 and $180,000 on that. So if we had that on top of the 685, we're getting to a little bit greater than the 820, 830. It could be as high as 850. Let's say.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good number to have as the expected receipt. So we're going to be pretty close. In terms of the offset, we now have 885,000 going in to help offset, which you saw on the prior page, to come down to a net number. That's the number that's scary. As you know, depending on how the budget works out, we may need more, maybe fortunately we may need less.
Right.
But what we have to do is try to build up that balance, because if these numbers were perfect, we'd end 2026 with only $164,000.
Right. That's a low point.
That's
over the last 5 years.
that's a low
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah.
we've said for years that at DESE, and I still think they'll have this mantra, that you should try to carry over a full year of receipts. So we should have tried to carry over from that 808 that's in 25 as our balance, as opposed to 164.
Yeah. We haven't done that in 5 years at least.
Hey, can you just walk through the math here? Like, what's getting added?
Well,
What?
your beginning balance in any year is the ending balance from the prior year.
Yeah,
And then you're adding the receipts, what you're gonna get from the state, for your circuit breaker reimbursement. And then you're subtracting the circuit breaker offset to arrive at the ending balance.
oh, okay, on circuit breaker offset, you're great, if you call that, like, the.
Yes.
All right.
So anyway, the scenario that would be awful to happen if you're really sitting with only 164 is the director of special ed walks into Jeff in December and says, we've been working with this child since September. We've done everything we possibly could. But now we really think we need to place this child in a special, in from one of these schools. And it's gonna cost $150,000.
Yeah.
And we're out of money.
What's in the revolver?
Well, this is the revolver.
No, I don't mean, I mean,
Put
the,
450, I think, in
the
there.
article, the reserve account we set up last
We,
year.
we put 200 in,
200?
and then they add some Medicare, small
Right.
amounts of Medicare
Okay.
reimbursements to it. I don't know what the balance is.
And we put something in for, out of free cash this year as well.
No,
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 no more.
no, it was a one-time. You know, it's gonna grow through these Medicare reimbursements.
Right,
And we-
that's right. It's gonna,
So it's around
So it's-
200,000.
yeah, but it's,
Probably like 220 or
Yeah.
225.
Quarter of a million.
you know, you look at
But
the,
it's,
look at the
like you said,
budget of
it's-
$1,780,000.
it's exceptional when you can use it.
It's exceptional.
It's not, no, it's not a routine.
It's
like,
the
it
last
doesn't-
resort.
It doesn't solve
It's
this
the last
issue.
resort, yeah, and there should always be enough money here to take care of those fluctuations that you're gonna have.
Right.
So,
So,
So doesn't that just mean we need to, but in the pile of money that is not that big, like budget more for special education? In the operating budget then? Because we can't count on the,
Yeah, that would solve the problem, but then we're given the tension of
yeah, I mean, I know, I guess. I'm
squeezing
just-
the balloon. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's gotta come from somewhere else, so.
right,
so if you've done your budget and we've gone through town meeting,
This is the worst case scenario again?
yeah,
It's
and,
on myself.
and some.
Am I helping you, Jeff?
Some new family moves to town and they have 2 kids with extraordinary special needs. You're legally obligated to provide appropriate education.
Well, it depends on when they move.
If they move before April,
Then
prior year, then we're responsible. It's After,
the sending district based one.
so we have a year to. But before.
So between now and town meeting, if someone moved in March, we'd have to increase this budget.
Interesting, okay, cool. Well, not cool.
Next slide.
Yeah.
I understand.
All right, let's go to the next one. Kindergarten, we talked about that. What do you have up
I
there?
have food service.
We can do food, then we'll go back, we'll do it that on.
Okay. This
food.
is the opposite problem. We have
Yeah.
Yeah, let's lighten things up.
And we started this, the first column there is 2021, and you can look at,
All right, guys, come on.
at the end of 2021, we only had 15,000 in that revolver. And then you can see how it built up when we started to get federal money, state money, and free lunches and reimbursed from the state, and how we built up that money. So now we're at forecasted $1.5 million for the end of this year, $1.628 for 26, and we basically kept it the same going forward. But now, Mike, you can speak to this. Now the state has talked to us about spending some of that money. And that's the capital program.
So we submitted a capital program to the state. Because it's federal and state dollars. The spending has to now, because it's all free lunches. So the lunches are paid by the government and the state, right? Combination. So, and because that new trend happened, let's say, what, 4 or 5 years ago, the state has to approve our capital budget for this specific, which is the food service account. So last year, we had to submit a 5-year capital plan because they wanted to see you spending down some of this reserve. So last year we submitted our 5-year capital plan, which is about approximately $100,000 every year for the next 5 years. To offset equipment, we did 3 dishwashers this past year. So we're going to replace, modernize kitchens with that capital.
So we wanted to get away from the paper trays and the styrofoam trays. So the reason why we went to that is because the dishwashers weren't working. So getting new dishwashers, allowing, there's time enough for what these trays to be washed, or else, like when we were in school, the dishwasher was always working and we just couldn't do that. So this has allowed us to kind of get away from all the styrofoam and all the paper, and it is a great thing.
So we have a capital plan that has been approved by the state that we have to follow for the next few years, and that's accounted for in the size.
So you can see it's a lot of money, 1.6 million. So the,
Did they say anything in that article about that money? Seems like that would be a place where the state might slow the faucet. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, particularly for communities like us, right?
yeah,
I mean, I think, there are probably communities that really need it, but
Right.
we're
There's no
probably not
indication
one
that
that.
we don't.
Those will get it. What's the next one?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten, all right, we talked a little bit about that, Jeff talked a little bit about, but it's, as we said, we have a 3-year program to migrate all of the teachers and assistants into the operating fund on the revolver. So every year the tuition's getting lowered and we have less revenue. And every year we bring in, we brought in 2 teachers into 26, we'll bring 2 more teachers into 27. Well, we have right now 6 paras. We'll bring that down to 2, but by the time we're migrated all of this and don't have any more revenue, and we'll be left with like $168,000 if our calculations are perfect, that we can use to supplement the memorial preschool.
And I have one question on this. So you said the receipts are going down, but in 26 they're going up.
Yeah, because that's the, so if you look at the, that bump in those kids, 233 kids.
Oh, that's the big bump in
I
kids.
thought it was
Okay.
27.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we are receiving, where is it here? It's 200 kids, 2027 is two, actually.
27 is the big.
Yeah, that's a big one. We have 150 kids, 2026, 150 kids, 2026 at 2,060. But then the deposits for the 27 come in fiscal year, as you can see, they'll come in prepaid in fiscal year 26. So,
But the receipts go from 353.9 up to 371, 250.
yeah, it's with the popular number of kids that are coming in.
Just a number of kids. Okay.
So.
Okay.
in FY 26.
Okay. All right.
So how does the 1,564,000 become 168,000?
You look at the ending balances, you go to the bottom of 25.
Yeah,
So you have 482,000 left. By the end of 26, we're forecasting 513. And now you've got your revenues going down from 401 to 195. So now your ending balance is going to 530 to 353 to
It's the payroll.
168.
They're moving people out of this, the cost of people, and they're putting it in the operating budget.
As you can see,
So
the
that's
payroll went from 360 to 168, 26 and 27.
So
So you go.
we're offsetting the cost from 25, so that's 1, 2, 3, could be up to 6 years.
You're moving all those costs out.
Very clever.
okay.
It's the only way to do it. You can't do it all at once. It would have cost almost $1,000.
School rental revolvers next.
The rental revolver, again, there's a lot of money in that account. It's, at the end of 25, we have 357, and we're gonna gradually build it up to almost 409,000 based upon the forecast there.
But
But again, that balance, some of these revolvers, you save money because you're gonna need it in the future for future expenditures. And this has been building up, earmarked for replacing the baseball field and the softball field.
yeah, so right now, that 30,000 that you see there is, so we contribute $30,000 to the debt for the football field at the high school, which was done in 2016. So 2020,
More payments off.
so 2 more payments left. So we carry that. What we're doing is we're also carrying a balance because the baseball field has to be done. we are anticipating that we will be paying a portion of that debt also to replace the baseball field to offset the tax, right? So,
Okay.
so that balance that you're seeing is gonna go to offset some of the costs that's gonna possibly bring you that baseball field.
And it really all depends on which way we go on that field. If we do a natural grass field, it's gonna be a heck of a lot cheaper than a field. So we have to kind of, it's half and half now, so
Yeah.
we have to make a decision what we're going to do. And then do it, and that will really drive how much it's gonna cost.
We know what most of the fields that are being redone, schools putting in grass or a combination, do we know? Everyone's doing turf outfield as well.
Right. That's why that field is the way it is, because not to get too techie with baseball, but the kids that are in the outfield have to wear metal cleats and the pitchers have to wear metal cleats. So then when they're on the turf, the metal cleats are wrecking the turf. You can't expect those kids to wear non-metal cleats off because they can't play the outfield. So it's just not a great
Makes
setup.
sense.
Not a great setup.
So it's either we go with turf or we go.
The other baseball.
I do have one.
You can't do half.
That's the school rental revolver that covers.
That's building rentals and that's field rentals.
Okay.
So, again, that, we've been building that because we know that that project is coming. And, like I said, offset some of that.
So like building rentals, does that mean like time for the hockey team, ice hockey time? or-
No, it's just our physical building.
Like youth basketball that rents on the weekends. So a lot of the receipts take a lot of that, so things, a lot of it's overtime for custodians that are there for the United States.
We have dance recitals and.
Okay,
I think that was the last one.
yeah, I think that was it, so. Are there any other questions about the school budget?
I don't have a question, but when you look at where your budget is, where the guidance is, it's a $300,000.
Great time.
The school committee is represented here. So the next meeting with the school committee is to address this.
Thursday night, and then we have a couple more meetings, so we're looking at it for the next couple of days. We'll probably have some reductions, but then we'll look for the meeting in March, really, to give the school committee some recommendations on where to make reductions and see where they want to go.
The public hearing, may have been 6 of them. It was the first one. I was very flowing along that. Like the gap is the 250 that we. I forget what it was 250. maybe it's short. What we really want. If you look at it this year, people. It really is the factors you can't. And we just say. Full day kindergarten. That's an investment as well. It's better education. It's more cost effective longer term. Some of Jeff, where you're putting them into the elementary school as well. You need that. You see what's going on with kids right now. So that was one, Dr. Marsden's trying to, he's working. That was the first time in my 6 years where I was just saying, I don't see it. I just, town that really is a certain degree of our branded. So it's, but I think this, I appreciate all the time we'll take to better understand it. We're just looking at it, we're saying, we're not sure. How do we get there? And I think Dr. Marsden.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, barring some type of rabbit that gets pulled out of the hat, I don't think that the guidance is gonna change, between now and March, unless the state all of a sudden comes back and, tells us something, but,
I think we talked about this before, that it's a timing issue in this town, right? Because the final state budget in this chapter 70 will be finalized after town meeting.
yeah,
So it's difficult here because you have town meeting in May and that gets finalized, June,
Yeah, yeah.
July.
but that's a consistent
It
issue,
is.
right? So So it happened last year, but that increase they gave us in June or July automatically got baked into this year's base, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
it's just a year delay with whatever that difference is. Personally, I don't think it's gonna be as big as last year, but, we'll see what happens, but. So I think, I guess our ask would be, obviously come back to us as soon as you can with, with the Prop 2.5 guidance, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and because we're gonna need that no matter what happens. And then if you school committee decides they want to pursue an override, that's a whole nother process that needs to occur jointly with the select board. And I would just caution you to if you think that one's needed, make sure you got the right year to do it, because it's going to be a battle in town if there is one, and you don't want to keep coming back every year asking for override. So, and you have a negotiation with the collective bargaining agreement coming up. So,
We have a little thing called Dale Street coming up too. So
And
we're-
Dale
we're
Street,
pretty
right.
aware of that.
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Well,
So-
you've done a great job with this book. I have to commend you in terms of the transparency, and it's pretty clear. Not pretty good, it's very clear, the way you manage costs, the way you're managing headcount, what you're dealing with is, and of course, the idea that, so I think you've made great progress. And I know that in the 7 years I've been on the Warrant Committee, I really do appreciate the progress and the work you've done and how you've managed it. To Tim's point, what's sustainable is a huge question. I do think, and you know better than I, how you present that mission, how you present that to the town, is more than an annual budget issue. Right? We have to set that up, and there's an election going on this year, so I mean, those are some of the opportunities to put that forward. But what we're stuck with is the numbers that Steve walked you through. We started back in September with these numbers, and as we say, the best estimates still proving to be not always the right estimate, right? So
Yeah,
we just, and it's not going in the right
I
direction.
mean, unfortunately, yeah, it's last year we had a good situation, right? It moved in the right direction and it solved everybody's problems.
And healthcare costs, thanks to Christine.
Yeah.
went down. That's-
Yeah, the healthcare thing saved the day, in the state, I think, too. So,
We ruined the day this year.
yeah.
I said, go ahead.
See that, and I don't follow it at all, but I think we're asking, we're trying to solve the 3.59. Said 2.5. Did I?
So, okay, so with the guidance that we provide is within a Prop 2.5 framework. The actual number is 3.5% increase.
Yeah,
That's the number that gets you to a budget where we don't have to go for an override.
I understood.
It's within the Prop 2.5 range. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what it's.
Okay.
I really appreciate you doing it. And
No, I know, it's not easy on everybody this year. It's a tough year. But, I would just try to think strategically, long-term, how you want to deal with this, sustainability problem of the budget, particularly on the school side. Probably should have a collective conversation about that, right? At some point, maybe not this year's budget, but I think it's a long-term problem for the town, so.
And it's outside the purview of this committee, but as a town citizen, seeing that there are some contested positions in the school committee, I hope that discussion arises, that's again, not as a budget issue, but just as a long-term strategic, that some of those comments and questions and positions are brought forward.
All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate
If you
it.
get anything after this meeting, just do it. Happy to meet and talk, so thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your transparency. And thanks, Ed.
Yeah, thank you, Ed.
A lot of work, my friend.
Rob, you've been waiting very patiently back there. Come on up. You Make any friends on this? Huh? You don't make any friends on this.
On the contrary.
I was just, yeah. We're no, who's gonna be setting his banner.
Like I said, when I was the CFO, if you went into the bar and they bought you a drink, and you weren't doing your job, you know, so I think it's similar to us.
Yeah. Okay, Rob.
All right, so we're just gonna hit on the town facilities budget, which you can see is at level funded other than utilities. First line is the salary line. I'll just give you a brief overview of whose salaries paid out of that is project manager, town project manager. We have a facilities technician. And 20% of my salary and 20% of the assistant or the facility salary comes out of that. And then we have the operating expenses, which are
Sorry, what are we looking at? Where are we seeing this?
Facility for the.
You want me to present this? Let's see if I can. This was in the email you
It was in
sent.
the email that Frank sent out.
Got it. Sorry, I don't have the print.
Actually, do you want me to print you one?
I'll show this
Thank you. Keep going. Don't stop for me.
operating expenses. You can see it pretty transparent, again, level funded. And then we have the building maintenance contracts, which are like trash, cleaning services, elevator contracts, fire alarm, pest control, boilers, everything that's required by code and by law. Again, level funded. I'm gonna go back to the utilities. Go through the maintenance contracts.
Yes.
And then the last one that I could speak to is the maintenance and repairs. So maintenance and repairs per town building, again, level funded. That's the budget that we would use for somewhat unforeseen, or if an issue comes up that we have to have a contractor come in to take care of an issue that we can't handle in the house. And just so everyone here is aware, again, it's somewhat of a bridge year, the way I see things. There's a handful of contracts out there that the town's been using for a few years. I'm reviewing all those contracts with the hope to get us some better numbers and some better vendors involved. But again, every contract's on the table to be reviewed. Some contracts will change the next fiscal year, but I think there's going to be some reallocation of funds coming up next year. Now, Frank, if you want to touch on the utilities.
Sure, so I feel like we just talked about this, but we're here again. Our electricity contract is somehow up already, and that will be up in the middle of next fiscal year. So just quick summary, both the town and schools have fixed contracts for our electricity bills. The rate that we pay for electricity, that does not include delivery. So if you look at your Eversource bill, there's the two parts, what you use and then how it gets delivered. Our usage part is fixed. So right now our rate is at about 12.9 cents. We had a substantial increase the last time we reviewed our contract. It was 9 cents. This time we expect the rate will be at about the same, if not maybe a touch less. So we're not expecting any increases on the electricity side. Fortunately, on the heat side, so that's our natural gas, we signed a contract in March of 2022 for a price of around $5.47
excuse me, $5.47 per decatherm. And Greg, you'll have to excuse me because I just learned what a decatherm is a few weeks ago, so.
I know what terms were, what's it?
That's right. I would refer to the pros. Anyway, so that price for the contract that we signed in March of 2022 went into effect in July of 2022. That contract is up at the end of this fiscal year, so that will be up on June 30th. That price is expected to be over $9 a decatherm. So that's going to be somewhere between a 70 and 80% increase on that utility. So for now, that's the only one that we'll have to touch. Like I said, the electricity looks like it's the rate that we have. Yeah. If you take any questions on.
So that's the $43,500 increase.
Yes. So we just applied the 75%.
Plus, okay. Any questions, comments on the facilities budget? Okay.
Welcome aboard.
You can stay there because we're gonna cover the municipal building stabilization fund. But very quickly, Frank, do you want to just cover the historical commission and then maybe we'll do, I don't know, are you doing IT or is Owen? I thought I saw Owen might be online.
I can take it. I don't know if he's.
My battery is running low. I might run out of juice, so.
Are you an app?
Is that a metaphor or is that a motion? I thought that was a metaphor.
I'm not gonna be able to share it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to share it. You'll have to share, or someone else will have to share.
Yes, someone like me. For whatever reason, I can't.
Steve.
Are you an Apple?
No, it's a HP.
USB-C. Oh, that kind of thing. I have one of those.
I have one over
I
here.
got it all. I can cut it out.
No, it's-
Oh, no.
You can't get there from here. Yeah, I got it. Don't say I never gave you anything.
With the function.
No, it's not plugged in, that's why.
Oh, okay. Yes,
Yeah.
success. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, now we gotta stay.
Okay, so we have IT and historical commission.
So
What do you want to do first?
I'm happy to do. Sorry, what are you saying? Did you want to do this first for Rob, or did you want me to do?
Well, is Owen waiting around to speak or he's not gonna, you're gonna cover
I
IT?
can, yeah, I can.
Okay, all right,
I can
okay.
cover IT.
All right.
Relatively quickly.
Okay, why don't we do IT?
Okay.
And then the historical can take 2 minutes.
So the IT budget, we tried to reorganize a bit this year and try to break it out so that it's a little bit more clear as to why the funding is going up the way it is. And I just realized, Emily, I'm sorry, this was your budget. Did you want to say anything?
No, not really, but it definitely there was some reorganizing going on there. So I think it's worth explaining.
Okay, so what we tried to do this year was make it a little bit more clear about what's actually being funded in this budget versus what's being funded sort of like at the department level. So the second page of the IT budget that I sent around, Steve, if you'll scroll to the next one.
Yep.
That one has basically the vendor by vendor breakdown of what we expect to pay and then what they're actually paid for. And then you'll see on the left side, it's broken down by budget line item. And we've definitely moved these around from where they're typically paid out of, just for purposes of transparency and making it a little bit more easy to understand. So for instance, you'll see that Google Incorporated, which is who we pay for our email and our Google Workspace accounts, is now included in equipment maintenance and contracted services. That used to be paid out of the telephone line item, which we didn't really think made sense, so we moved that one up. into this bucket here. So that's why you'll see in some of the line items, some of them go way up, some of them go way down, and it's because we're trying to make it a little bit easier to understand. Most of the increase, so the the $67,000 increase in IT operations is due to the OpenGov contract, which is our online permitting system that we funded through the capital plan last year. Like I said, the implementation was funded through the capital plan, and now it hits the operating budget. That was all part of the, again, capital and operating budget approval process last year. It's a $52,000 operating increase. We did have a little bit of savings because we probably have more savings in the future years because there are additional programs that we'll be able to drop. But we'll be really excited to get this off the ground. And Brittany and Maria and a lot of different folks at Town Hall have been working really hard on this. So we're excited to get it up and running. The other cost that we saw an increase on, and this was the topic of the reserve fund transfer that we had last year, was the increased number of Google email and workspace accounts, both active and archived. So if someone came and worked for the town of Medfield for a few months and then they left, we still have to pay for their email account, just for the purposes of the records retention. So last year we signed a contract that basically signed us a fixed price for each of those accounts. So we did realize some savings in that way, but the number of accounts that we have tends to only go up and drop off only a little bit over time because you have to wait that 7-year period before you can complete them. And in a way, we're fortunate because we have a lot of very tenured employees in Medfield. So we don't have too much to drop up because people tend to stay and use that email until they retire, until they go somewhere else. That's the secondary driver towards that $67,000 increase. But primarily it's the OpenGov.
Any questions, comments?
That's a great schedule though, like the detail that add up to the numbers. It's really,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Sometimes you don't really know, like you can see the bill and say,
see what's in it,
yeah, what do they do? Because
what's in the number.
a lot of these tech companies all have names that are like, really catchy. Well, I don't know what that means. So, yep. And then historical, oh, sorry, were there any commission questions on IT?
Any other questions, comments on IT? Okay, I think you can do this in a minute, a minute or less.
Yeah.
Historical Commission.
Yeah, level fund request for historical commission. Most of their expenditures have to do with advertising, so they have a lot of public hearings that they'll have to hold. You can see that in their historical spending data for 22, 23, and 24. But no increase requested for 26.
Okay.
Is it?
All right, now we are on to the capital. So what am I looking at here? This is,
So we have
is there a separate schedule for municipal buildings?
yes, so there's a 5-year plan on there for non-buildings, and then if you keep scrolling down, you'll see just the fiscal year 26. And Rob, as you said, we're in the process of updating the 20-year capital plan, so we don't have a full 5-year plan as we would in years past, just because we're still going through the draft report that Air Street has sent us. So, Rob, you want to kick it off with the municipal buildings? See if that's okay with you.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the schedules we have here. We have, which schedule do you want to look at first? There's some capital. Okay, so is it further down?
Mm-hmm.
School buildings, we kind of already talked about this, right?
Yep.
Okay. Town buildings. Okay. Now here's a question for you. This says 910,000 for schools. Jeff had $1.1 million in on his slide. On his flip book. Didn't he? Or
Yeah.
It was definitely $1 million. It was definitely $1 million.
1.1, I think. Yeah, I think it was 1.1. You know why there's,
I'll touch base with Jeff on that.
okay.
I have the 910 as well, so they may have added something.
Do you know, Brent, what the,
If you go down to the very, very bottom of the second page, it's town and school.
oh, okay,
175,000, Tri-County 7,000.
okay, that's probably the difference, yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so we'll go through this then, we'll, town buildings, right, is that the town hall, gonna start with that one?
Sure.
Okay,
This is much like I said with the schools, so when you see, the HVAC improvements, it's all the equipment, that's what we're talking about, but town hall, so the site work, all the brick walkways and the brick in front of the building. We need to get that up to ADA compliant. It's, it's decrepit right now. It's getting to the point where it needs some work. We had an architect out, the week before last to give us a scope of work, help us build a scope of work. And, our goal is to get that brick redone to the point where it's ADA compliant. Interior improvements, we're doing carpet right now. We're going to continue with that, phase it through.
it looks great.
The HVAC improvements. So when I took the position a couple of months back, there's been thought that there needs to be some major renovations to the HVAC equipment here, mainly the chiller. I asked the administration here to give me a year of both heating season and cooling season so I can determine whether or not that's truly the case or if it's something maybe use it or some mistakes that were made that we can try to alleviate. But we need that $30,000 to keep moving forward with the equipment that we have here. And it's pretty much the same as you go through. Public safety is in the same boat. Public safety has a platform right now which runs their HVAC that is proprietary and obsolete. So we need to move forward to a present day platform there.
That's a new building.
How new is new?
I don't know. Didn't they just build that, the public safety building? Is that what you're talking about?
Almost 9 years.
Yeah.
9 years, and it's obsolete already, okay.
I've had to like a few washing machines.
So that's a great comment because what our goal is right now is to stay away from proprietary equipment. It's end of life it very quickly. And so we want to go to an open platform that multiple contractors can work on. We can buy equipment off the shelf. We don't have to go through proprietary vendors.
Yeah.
So we'll get away from our equipment dying after 7 years.
Good.
That's the goal. Well, like I said, as we go through these, you see electrical upgrades at public safety. That's a pretty major one too. That was a proprietary lighting system that was put in. That company that put in that system is out of business. Can't get parts for that equipment right now. Fortunately, the building's occupied 24/7, so there's not a lot of times when you have to shed power and so forth. So it's manageable right now, but upgrades do need to be made.
You're going to be part of the school building committee, right?
Sounds like it.
We won't make these mistakes again.
Park and Rec, we're not going to get into the modular building right now, I assume. I think you guys have a special meeting for that. COA, the building envelope, again, anything you can touch, the roof, the windows, the siding. There's a walkway that they want to take. If you're looking at the building from the front, you look at to the right, there's a walkway there now. They want to extend that walkway around to the back. We're on our third phase of flooring upgrades there. We're going to continue that. The library.
Excuse me, that walkway, that's coming out of their revolving fund, Christine?
For council on aging?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The library. We just commissioned 6 new rooftop units that were installed over the last few weeks. We're going to continue with upgrades there. I had a contractor on site today. There is no platform, energy management platform at the library right now. So what that means to us is we don't have any remote control. We can't remote in. We can't make remote changes. We don't get updates as to or alerts as to when there's an issue. So that can be problematic. And it's the energy savings that you can get from putting in an energy management system is off the charts. So that's the goal right now. Like I said, I had a contractor out there today to get us some budgetary numbers and continue with working towards getting this equipment as today as we can. Site work at the library is much like at the town hall. The whole brick front needs to be redone. You can see that there's some heaving where there's the roots from the tree are starting to heave the brick. Again, the same contract, the same architect that we had out at the high school to review the brick there, we brought over to the library. We're expecting to see something by mid-month. And then electrical upgrades. The director of the library has asked for some lighting upgrades, interior lighting upgrades to make it, and she's right, it's needed. DPW, the salt shed needs to be painted. Trying to get Mo to do it, but not feeling it right now. That needs to be done. And then Mo's looking to have a lean-to design done. So what that is, it's like an overhang off of the salt shed that you can put equipment under that we don't need to have managed weather, heat managed or temperature managed, but we want to keep them out of the elements, which will make the equipment last longer and so forth. And those were requests by Mo, and since I've been here, like I said, a couple of months. If Mo speaks, you better listen. So I've learned that fairly quickly, and he knows his stuff. So
Yeah.
But that's where we're at. And again, like I said, this FY26, in my opinion, is sort of a bridge year. I'll know much more about the equipment inside the buildings and be able to give the departments some more direction as to moving forward for the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. All right,
Thank you.
sounds good. This is just the
We
roll,
learned an awful lot in a short time.
just the roll forward of the stabilization account, I guess. Right? Okay. Have we had some, do we have some turnbacks or some appropriated fund from other sources?
Yes.
Is that the unexpended,
Yes, so right now, Rob and his team have identified a few prior year's articles that we can turn back.
okay,
I'd expect that number to maybe trickle up a little bit. We wanted to be conservative and not overestimate that. We wait more money.
okay, okay, sounds good.
And by the time town meeting comes around, we'll have full.
Yeah,
Break out.
all right. Any questions, comments on the municipal building? Capitals, okay.
Good handle in a short period of time. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just curious, what was your background before you came here?
So I worked in commercial HVAC for 15 years.
Oh.
Then I was in facilities for 20 plus. And then like Michael said, I did work as a OPM, which I'll be straight with you, it wasn't a hard time with the fee schedule of the OPM, which you commented on. So I had to get out of that line of work. It was difficult to keep going back to the owner asking for more funds when I literally couldn't put any effort into a project.
Yeah.
So it didn't sit well with me. So
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to interview for this position, and I think it's a good move for myself.
That's great.
Enjoy being here.
Well, we're lucky
that
to have you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Peter will be supporting you and helping you every step along the way in the school building.
All right,
Nice to meet you
so,
all.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Likewise.
I don't think we have any updates from finance, right? Peter, is there anything you want to very quickly update us on the school building committee?
I was trying to expound, I think. No, not much. We're in the process of filling out the documents for module 1. Jeff and Mike, publicly thank them when they were here, are doing a lot of the legwork on pulling those documents together. On March 18, we're coming before the select board to have Rob and one other person, maybe it's Mike off on Chestnut, appointed to in a non-voting capacity, but to the school building committee, because there's a list of people you have to have that the FDA requires. That don't have certain kinds of expertise on there right now, so we'll fill that in. You have to have the select board sign a certificate of compliance. So we're moving along on various steps that need to be taken.
Great.
Here, here.
All right, Anything else that anybody wants to bring up or, okay? If not,
Mission,
mission or motion?
motion, mission motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a second? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.